Oh, I hope I'm live now. I got to share a funny story really quick. I kept trying to go live and it would just like sit and circle. And then I finally realized that instead of putting my phone into do not disturb, I had put it on airplane mode. So I didn't even have any service. So that's why I wouldn't go live. So really glad I figured that out. Technology. And so I just finished a podcast interview. Her name is Amy May. And she is on Instagram as Embody Your Design XO, if you want to go check her out. But she has a podcast that is called Embody Your Design. And so it's all about human design and embodying it and how you can integrate that into your life and, go through your own experiment. And so it was such a good interview. So I'm really excited for that to release. That'll be in January. I will make sure to give you guys the links for that because it's a really good conversation. It kind of went all over the place, but we dropped a lot of information about kids. And so one of the things that I began talking to her about was how when I first began using human design with my kids, it was because my youngest was diagnosed with ADHD when he was in first grade. So now he is in fourth grade. So about 3.5 years he's had this diagnosis. And when I dove into his human design chart and kind of began wondering, is there some aspects of the chart that might contribute to this? Does he really even have ADHD? Which, I don't discount, the medical diagnoses and things like that and, mental processes that are going on. But I also really love the turn to look at the chart too. So along my exploration, I found this really incredible training by Karen Curry Parker, and I'm gonna make sure that I link that in here. I'll have to go back and find it, but I'm gonna link it in case you want to go to the original training. But because mine's not gonna be as long, I want to keep it short. But I just wanted to talk about some aspects of the chart that I noticed when I dove into my son's chart and I went through this training of Karen Curry Parker's, that I was just like, oh my gosh, this is mind-blowing. It's just revelational. And so one of the very first things is my son is a man-gen. I'm a man-gen as well. Not saying if you're a man-gen, you automatically have ADHD. But again, we're talking just traits and characteristics. So man-gens, of course, we can tend to be all over the place. We're often doing more than one thing at a time. So our focus is in multiple, areas. So inattentive, right? That could be labeled as inattentive or distracted. Another thing is my son is also a nervous determination. So if you pool, you'll be able, if you go to Genetic Matrix, you can find kind of all this advanced information on your child's chart, or you can message me and I'll help you find it as well. And we can get you that extra information, this kind of more in-depth information. But the determination really talks about how they digest. So how they digest food, how they digest information that they're taking in, how they digest the world around them. And my son has what we call nervous determination. And that's exactly what it sounds like. The kid doesn't ever stop moving. When he eats, he needs to fidget. He can't sit still. He needs to be up, he needs to be down, he needs to be messing with stuff. I used to try to get him to sit still for big family meals all around the table, and he just he was up, down, running around. People would get mad. And so now we don't eat together as a family. Motherhood confession, we do not all eat together as a family. They eat a little bit separately, because of their different needs, right? Some of my kids just couldn't take him up running around, and it made a really stressful meal for them. So why do I keep forcing them together when we can get really innovative here? But that's another subject. So nervous determination, always fidgeting up, down. He needs to be able to digest his food and his learning. He needs to be able to move. And let's talk about our traditional school system. They're better now, but they don't support kids being able to get up and move around, and they're a distraction, right? They're labeled a distraction. And that would be him on the rugs in first grade. The teacher would be reading and he's on the rug, moving around, being disruptive, and just never stopped moving. Again, common characteristic trait of ADHD. Okay. Then we go on to, oh, hang on. My notes went away. Oh, yes. And so he also has an undefined head and ajna. And so those, if you have both undefined, you may not always retain the information, right? It may come in and go out, and it may take several times for you to retain that information. Another characteristic of ADHD, unable to, retain the information. And then we can talk about some of the gates that she mentioned were gate 36. And so gate 36 is in the solar plexus, the emotional solar plexus center. And she was talking about kind of the energy behind that was they might get bored and want to explore the next thing. And so he, of course, has gate 36 defined, and he's very much into like, I'm done with that, ready to go on to the next thing. Again, could be labeled as hyperactive, inattentive, unable to focus. Another one that she talked about was if you have gate 41 defined, that's in the root center. It's the gate of daydreaming and really extreme creativity. So daydreaming, right? Not focused. Another trait of ADHD. On the flip side, there's gate 9. And so my son has gate 9 defined. I do as well. That's in the sacral center. And it's like this like rabbit hole focus. So think about like if he has something he's really interested in, and I'm the same way as well, like, oh, we can hyper focus all day long. Like we will be busy all day long. But if it's not something that's really holding our interest, not something we're really interested in, it can really look like we're just not paying attention or inattentive again. So then she talked about a couple of the channels because they're part of the integration circuit. So these channels, if your child has this whole channel defined, or you do as well, you need more time to learn and to like integrate, right? And you may not be able to just like, they tell you something and you're like, oh, right away, it's in there, it's integrated, I'm embodying this. So that's channel 3420, which he has none of these channels, but these are the ones that Karen was sharing about. Channel 3420, 2057, and 3457. So you can look at the chart, see if you have any of those defined. Other thing she talked about, the open throat, because the undefined throat has kind of like this impulse to speak, right? They just kind of feel that pressure to like, well, blurt something. And so again, we label kids who have impulse control issues or blurting with ADHD. And then she had on here manifestors as well. Kind of can have that same energy of like being inattentive or not paying attention. What else did she? There's a lot of stuff here, so I was just kind of picking up on some of these ones that were just like whoa for me. I have flies. Yeah, so she was also talking about, there's so many of them. So maybe even like the emotional authority. If your child has emotional authority defined, sometimes that wave, they have to go through their emotional wave to be able to process information, and we know that takes time. They might struggle to follow instructions if they are a 3rd or 6th line profile, right? Because those are the experimenters that I have to do this for myself. I have to try this out. I have to fail to learn. So manifestors just don't follow instructions. That's what it says. I love that. Projectors, it says they might struggle to follow instructions because they know a better way to do it. Reflectors might struggle to follow instructions depending on the environment that they're in. If nobody else is liking what they're doing, around them, then the reflector's not going to like it either. Manifesting generators, we know that they can just have a lot of that energy, and if they're unable to sit still, again, that's been labeled as ADHD. So I just thought that it was really, really interesting, and then I was sharing with Amy just some of these aspects of the chart that I had learned and how I had observed this and how I was able to kind of add some additional techniques and resources to my parenting to help support him in his ADHD by also knowing these aspects of the chart. I think a big part of that is just knowing his nervous determination and that he's always moving. So always having something that he can be like expelling that energy. So he's not blurting, he's not, messing with other kids. He's got that energy flowing through him and then releasing in a appropriate way. So let me know if you have any of those things defined, if you found that as interesting as I did when I first learned about it. And I will make sure that I link that original training because it was really, really interesting. But it's also, I think it was like an hour-long training. But if you're interested in that and diving more into that and, hearing everything that she had to say about it, I highly recommend it. So I will see you later. Make sure that you let me know if you have any questions, any comments, anything that you've observed when you look at your chart compared to some of these things. I would love to hear your feedback. So I will see you later. Have a wonderful Tuesday.